Puerto Rican kid, bald head, loves snakes, loves Blizzy, Sergio Chacon.
Yeah. What up, Pa?
Peace. Welcome to the DBS podcast. It's your boy Sergio Chacon, aka Blizzy Chacon. That shit whack. I mean, it's always gonna be dirtbag shit podcast. The DBS podcast. Peace, and welcome to the DBS podcast. It's your boy Sergio Chacon, and I'm joined by the Commissioner of Comedy, my man James Mad Dog. We call him the Commissioner of Comedy because that's your newest podcast.
It's my podcast, buddy.
Yeah. At first, I was a little weirded out by it. I didn't know what it meant. I took it way too serious.
And that's why I'm conflicted about it.
Yeah, because commissioner is a serious word.
It's a serious word. We were just going to do like a comedy etiquette. It's just like, hey, what do you want to do? What are you passionate about? I'm passionate about our business. I've always joked at the green room, yo, these young kids, man, they got to get their shit together. They're coming in here with their fish sandwiches, and they're not even booked, and they're interrupting people, and they're sticking up the green room. Comedy needs a commissioner. I should be the commissioner. Just as a joke. And then when we come up with the idea of this during quarantine a year ago, Comedy 101 doesn't sound as good. It sounds boring. Commissioner comedy sounds good, but now I have to deal with people thinking, yo, so you the fucking commissioner? Nah, man, it just sounds way cooler than so you want to be a comedian.
Yeah, because that's basically what it is. I mean, it's pretty much insight into comedy etiquette. It's like a fly
in a journey
in the green room, kind of observing what's going on.
It's the like, passion, yes, and it's there to help.
And you did
people.
It during a time when comedy was fucking down and out. Comedy was on one knee with the mouthpiece in the glove.
Yeah,
talking about, yo, are we gonna even fight again?
I was so worried, and it's like you look at numbers and you're like, yo, this is a failure. No one wants it, and people are like, yo, stupid, you did start it when there is no comedy anymore. So just stick with it a little bit and see who comes, because people will.
Well, I think when you think about starting something like that's actually not going on, but talking about it, I think you missed it. You missed comedy, and you want to talk about comedy, and it was, bringing back the essence to what that was. And now it's, it's back. It's coming back.
Thank God. Yeah, it's crazy. Forget everything else. It was important for me to do it because I needed something to remind me of how much I love this business and the work I needed to do. Because as I say every week on this pod, even with the intimidating name and all that shit, I'm speaking to myself as much as I'm speaking to anyone else. I'm still trying to get better. And there's things as I would spit out and pontificate and be like, oh, I should actually do this more than I actually do.
I like that word.
Yeah, well, I mean, if I'm going to use this goddamn moniker of the commissioner, I should use
you got to use more pontificate. The words in that family.
Buddy,
it reminds me of Mike Tyson's fonticate.
Oh, my God, that's the best.
I thought you were going to say, if I'm going to start fornicating on the podcast, I'm going to make sure. I mean, Mike Tyson uses some big-ass fucking words that they're not always in the correct context, but you know what he means.
Do we know that? I'm not going to question him. Is Mike Tyson the real-life version of the old Living Color bit when Damon Wayans was incarcerated? That's another big word. And he would use those words, and then you'd be like, how is this funny? He's just saying big words. And then someone would be like, yo, none of these words mean anything he's saying. That's what the joke is.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. And the one thing I have to say about you, I was going to call you Mad Dog, because everyone knows James. If you know James
the old days.
From the old days, we called him Mad Dog. He used to run. First of all, I want to give a quick background on how we met.
Yeah.
You were in the city, I was in the city, and we were running around, little scoundrels, hitting, the pavement hard. And everyone fucking knows you. You're a New York staple, you know what I'm saying? Like in the comedy scene. Everyone knows and loves you. And we called you Mad Dog, and you shed that name.
But shit, you're the one who knew why I shed it.
Yeah.
We had a come to Jesus moment, you and me.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, yeah, I like that. This is growth for you. I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but I'm a big advocate and supporter of people who want change, and that was a change you wanted.
It's important.
It's important.
It was one of the greatest decisions of my life.
And you went to your real name. You didn't go with the symbol. You didn't do some Prince shit.
I should have done a symbol, though. I love Prince so much. I should have worn my Sign of the Times shirt today. And
is it true? Because you're like a big you're a musical guy. You know your music. Is it true that Prince did that for tax reasons or for like publishing reasons? He changed the name to the symbol for what reason?
I don't think it was that. I just think he did it as a big FU to the record label. It's just like, okay, You call me this, now you can't call me anything. I'm just a symbol.
Yeah. Because a lot of people, it came across as like super pretentious and everything. I mean, this motherfucker get away with anything. He stays up in his pajamas playing instruments. I mean, the dude is sexy. It looks like he always wears eyeliner.
That's like I feel like he puts it on before he goes to bed.
Yeah.
And then when he wakes up, it didn't even make a mess, and he could just walk around. You know, one of my best friends growing up,
I mean,
is a big Prince fanatic.
Prince is an interesting dude because he was very feminine, but he was very much an authority, right?
Yeah.
So he like captured the essence of both of those worlds because he would tell motherfuckers like hardcore rappers, I can't do a song with you. You own your publishing. I can't fuck with you. He would tell God. He told Nas that they were supposed to do a song. He's like, yeah, you don't own your publishing, so we're not gonna do that. But here, take this pen and paper. I'm gonna show you how to get your public. And like he would put,
wild.
Yeah, he would put guys onto game.
Well, but here's the thing. So this is how dope he was, though, right? So everyone focuses now, especially because like the Chappelle Show bits and the Charlie Murphy bits about like how feminine he was and all that. But what you're saying is so true. Everyone thought he was crazy when he changed his name to the symbol and then kind of disappeared in a way and was writing slave on his like face. Mm-hmm. And now we look back at it and we respect what he did as artist so much that he goes, no, I could just do this forever. I'm going to control shit. These guys are basically pulling my strings. I'm not going to do. It's like the Godfather shit. I'm going to be the one holding the strings. And he lost a bunch of people for a while. And then when everyone came back, everyone's like, sorry, Prince, we should have stuck with you through the whole thing. You are what an artist should be, man. And a business person. If you don't control your own shit, you don't control nothing. That's how gangster he is.
Yeah, he was gangster with it.
But he looked like he was floating, like you said. It looked like he was ready to reenact the scene from Mary Poppins at any time and float away. And he was like, nah, I'm going to grab this record label by the fucking balls.
He was a G. I saw him in the Jersey Stadium. I can't remember the stadium I saw him with. It was a gift for Liz on her birthday.
Yeah. Oh, I remember you telling me about this back in the day. I was like, yeah.
And CeeLo Green, who's a powerhouse of a performer, courageously creative, opened up for him. So you understand the magnitude of what the fuck I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
And who's in the front row? Kim Kardashian.
Of course.
So he brings up a girl on stage. It just happens to be Kim. Or he did that shit on purpose because he knew that it's like like my people from Bay Ridge would say, she thinks she is who she is.
She thinks who she is.
She thinks who
she is, dog.
Right. So she goes up on stage and she cannot catch a beat. She's mad off rhythm.
She's goofy, huh?
Mad goofy.
Is she secretly goofy?
Yeah, 2 left feet. This is what I'm telling you, man. The machine will push what they want, their agenda, and it's like, oh, this woman doesn't even have rhythm.
What I think everyone knows with her, she's fine. That's how she got it. She's fine, and her dad got OJ off. That's why she's like what she is. I mean, it's almost like everyone brings it up whenever she like makes a business deal and is in the news. It's almost like Kim Kardashian signed this deal, and then it's like almost always in parentheses, the bitch has no talent. It's always some shit. They always want to remind you that she really is no artist. She doesn't create.
Yeah.
She just is this entity because of fame, and she's fine. It's kind of like if you ever play poker. Sometimes people just get a bunch of chips and then they win. If you have more chips than everyone, you can just bully everyone. You don't have to be good at poker. Fame and hotness together is like buying into the poker game with triple the chips everyone else has.
Yeah. She has 2 left feet. I remember that.
She has no skill, no talent.
Yeah, so when
But one full ass, Bubba.
My God.
2 left feet, but 1 perfect ass.
Yeah, the thing is, her ass is too abrupt for me. Like I've seen, it's too abrupt. Like I need a gradual from the thigh to butt. It should a real ass is kind of gradual. Ooh, look at that butt. This is kind of like a P. It's just like.
Well, I haven't looked in a while.
Yeah, if you look, it's just like legs and then it pops out P. So you had 2 left feet, and Prince carrying one of his like 15 instruments says, "Get off stage." He kicks off stage.
No, he doesn't kick off.
Yes, I swear to God. He says, "Get off the stage." He says, I can't deal with this. Kicks off stage.
Did he say can't deal with it too?
Yeah, dogs.
He's the greatest. Rest in peace, Prince.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
And I love that. I'm not like that. I'm too nice of a person. Like sometimes we may know comics like that, like OGs who talk to like younger comics. I've never been like that. I'm a nice guy. and I don't do too much of that hazing and shit. But I like when other people do it, especially when they deserve it.
Well, that's another reason why the podcast exists. It's like, I like to be supportive, but man, sometimes we've given enough rope and people just think they're fucking cowboys, man. And it's nice when people put people in check. Yo, man, if you ain't paying dues, what are you doing? Like, I got, sometimes rightfully and sometimes not rightfully, I got hazed and got put in my place.
What would you say was the meanest? Who was like mean? And you go, you know.
I'll do the name because I did the name on the show.
Yeah, who was like a mean?
It's known. Todd Lynn was the most heartless, and I know that I don't want to say revisionist, but you're starting to see years after his death now more people fucks with him, probably because there's distance. And I was cool with him the last time I saw him. I ended up earning his trust, but part of it's like, I don't give a fuck. You were so this dude.
He was a mean guy. Yeah.
Was so mean. He wanted you out of the business, and I don't want to speak bad or ill of the dead. But if I am, after saying that sentence and then still going to continue, that should let you know how horribly mean he was. I didn't say the name on the show of who he said this to, and this could be bullshit, but this had floated around for years. You might know what I'm talking about. He supposedly once, forget me, this girl got on a show. I remember doing mics with her at the Village Lantern, when the Village Lantern was just this minor league baseball stadium for comedians in a basement.
Yeah.
Rats would run around while you're doing your cockroaches. You were right in front of the bathroom. People are pissing and doing coke, and you can hear them.
I never, I wasn't at the Village Lantern enough to despise it, but I kind of appreciated it.
Insane.
But in abundance, I could see that shit being a real pain in the ass to work.
It was rough. And so but that was your training ground to get into clubs. So then when you got like a guest spot or a check spot or anything in a real club, something that has comedy club in the name and shit, you were excited. And this girl does the show. I forget where it was at. Todd Lynn's on the show. And then the next day, supposedly, she's walking down the street and Todd stops her. Now, Todd you can say whatever you want about Todd. Todd crushed.
Yeah.
Todd crushed. People would fucking like take their hats and throw it in the air at how funny it was and rip their hair out. And people, he'd destroy a room. And so he was respected. And
he was a complete professional in that aspect,
in
too.
that aspect, absolutely.
Yeah, like stand-up wise.
Clip it.
Yeah.
Just turn on the switch and here I am. And he sees this girl and says, hey, stops her. Just like, hey. So she's like excited apparently. He's like, oh my God, you were the girl outside of the show. Yeah. You should quit. What? Yeah, you're not good at all. You shouldn't do this. Who fucking stops someone and does this?
Yeah.
And so, like, that's the shit. And then it got to the point where he did so much, like, so nasty to me. And now I had the nickname, and I get it. What's your government name, motherfucker? I'm not bringing you up to Mad Dog. And it's just like, there's a nicer way of doing it. And he was trying to get me to bomb on a show where I was filling in for the closer, first night at Eastville. And Dustin Chafin had to leave, and he texted me. He's like, he's trying to shake you. Don't let him win. And I had a good set. Now, would I've had a good set and ended up working that comedy club for as long as I have if that didn't happen? So in a way, I wish he didn't treat me like that, but despite him, I delivered. Well, it got to the point at this club we were working where I'd host and he couldn't follow me hosting. I remember once he goes, oh, you want that rock and roll motherfucker hosting. You don't want my shit. And I kind of felt good, but it's not my job to be better than someone. And then he fell off the stage and I helped him up when everyone was oohing him. And then we were cool after that.
Yeah.
But it was like, why did I have to go through that, man?
Yeah, he was sick too, right? Towards the end?
He got sick towards the end.
And so that's why he fell off the stage?
I think so. And I also, for years, so I got bumped from an audition at Stand Up New York because Kevin Nealon came in because him and his wife were eating vegan food. And then the manager at the time was like, don't worry, I'm going to put you on at the end after Todd. And we're going to film it. We're going to give it to the booker. I don't know if it's because Todd's eyesight wasn't good, but I still have a hunch. I mean, at least that night I felt this, that he blew the light by 45 minutes. He did like an hour. He also the whole time was like, why? Who's this motherfucker? Oh, he's auditioning. He don't deserve to audition. Get him the fuck out. He was saying this out loud at the audition and then blew the light by 40 minutes. I couldn't audition, and I didn't get past the club for like 3 or 4 years.
That is hilarious.
Scoundrel. Scandalous. I mean, that's why you will hear people openly talk bad about someone who's passed away. And you know me, and like anyone dies in the business. You met them once, and you're like, write a post on Facebook out of respect. It's like, we do that shit. We take care of our own. For someone to have comics still talk poorly about them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's some psychological shit he was playing with people. But once again, like the hazing, I ended up doing all right because of some of it. It was motivation. But I mean, there's got to be a better way than to just do that shit. I mean, like it's an 80s sports movie where the coach takes over and tears you down to build you back up.
I feel like that sort of shit doesn't really exist like that as much.
Oh, yeah.
It probably does in small circles, but I'd never really felt that with him. I seen him do it, but he never, when I saw him do it, I was entertained because it was so jarring.
Well, he probably knew better than you. You'd show up with a goddamn, before anyone knew what smoothies were in New York City, you would work out, box all day, and you would show up with like a goddamn smoothie the size of my first 2 apartments combined in New York, full of like protein and peanut butter and bananas.
Doing protein farts.
And you would sip it slowly with confidence. And everyone knew why you're sipping it because you just worked out like you're going to the Olympics.
I just remember him not like hosting at Stand Up New York and like a newer comic. He probably didn't want to host these shows.
Oh, yeah.
They were like new talent shows, and he would someone would say, "Can you put this credit?" And he said, "You ain't got no credit. That's why you're on the show," and just walk away and fuck up the name, and that was it. You know. But I never. If someone behaved that way, I always felt that was their shit. Like you can't take it too personal.
You can't, but I mean, so that's a fair thing, but at the same time, you can't because we're people.
Yeah.
And we all have our shit. But it's, I mean, our part of life is figuring out how to deal with your insecurities and your angst and your horse shit and not add more to someone else.
Yeah. Do you find that running has lowered your anxiety and stuff, like with you dealing with your shit? Because you recently discovered that running.
I got back into it.
So you've always ran?
Well, no, I was running for a minute, and then I got this little problem in my feetsies. We were talking off mic, my plantar fasciitis, and so I had to go to the gym and do ellipticals, and then I dislocated.
I mean, you run a lot. I mean, it's your running style. I would say is close to obsessive.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. And then during the pandemic,
because you'll do like 8, 9, 10 miles in a clip.
I was doing 10.5 before the foot started acting up again.
What motivates you to run? The feeling afterwards? Are you enjoying the actual run, or is it a little bit of both? Or what is that?
Well, it started like when I was back in Vegas during the quarantine, and we had no idea about vaccines and shit like a year ago, and I was like, oh man, I better get my lungs back. I better get good lungs for this because if I catch it, I don't want it to damage me forever or kill me and shit. So let's go. So I started running a little bit. And then when I got back to New York in July, I just started running the streets of Bay Ridge and kept doing the antsy. And I was spending half of my time in PA for a while. There's nothing to do in the suburbs but run. What are you going to do?
And what do you, when you run, do you do it to a podcast? Do you do it to music?
Podcast.
Okay. I mix it up. I'll do music. Sometimes I'll run to the rhythm of my own breath, silence, just to really become one with myself.
Sometimes that's okay, yeah.
Yeah. I find that I'll get a good, stronger run, and I'll be able to accelerate better at different times. If I have a playlist of, let's say, like a mix of hip hop,
yeah,
and I'm starting off hard, some DMX, rest in peace DMX,
rest in peace,
and
DMX.
then it goes to some Outkast, it will mess up my rhythm.
It does. That is a problem with music. I was doing music,
yeah,
and then I stopped.
So what I do
because of that,
yeah. So what I do find, if I'm gonna listen to music, quite often I'll listen to an entire album, so that there's like a beginning, middle,
a story,
and end. There's kind of a story. And
look at you, you're so goddamn deep.
It feels a little better.
Yo,
and
deep.
I'll find like, okay, well, if we do a playlist, quite often we're listening to like the hits, maybe, right? And then it's like, oh man, this reminds me of the stupid club I was at. It kind of reminds you of certain things, and it's just the rhythm, the tone, kind of is a bit of a distraction. So I like silence or a full-length album.
Full length.
For running.
Ooh, man, you tempted me. If I make it to the gym later.
Just something, something different.
Yeah.
Podcasts I'll do as well. Sometimes I'll do my own podcast because that's part of the work. What I'm realizing now, and, I'm not going to go ahead and tell myself, I wish I knew this shit when I was younger. I wish I did. But, when it even comes to stand-up, most recently, I would say within the past 5 years, I started listening back to my sets, and holy shit, that's the most helpful thing you can do. I don't do enough of it, but when I do, if I listen to a set prior to the evening shows, I have a better set almost each and every time. I'm not using extra words. I'm gathering a tempo and a rhythm that assists me.
Absolutely.
With stand-up. You know, if I don't listen to my set and I go up and it's been weeks or whatever, I'm a little shaky, a little tight.
What you're saying is absolutely logical and great, and that's why you're a wonderful man, and we're in this great studio, and you're crushing it.
It's not bad, right?
Yeah, it's great. I can't do it. I should.
You can't do what?
Buddy, listen to me. So my first album, do you realize that album got recorded in October of 2018, and we released it in August of 2019. You know why? Because the next week I got sent the tracks and I'm walking to the gym and I'm listening and I'm cringing, I'm melting down, I'm getting laughs, and I turned on the audience. I go, that joke could be better. You stink. You're laughing at anything. You're a bad audience. You're leading me on. I stopped. It took me months to listen to myself, to write the notes,
tough.
to put the tracks, melting down.
Yeah, it's tough.
And I'm putting out another album now, and I'm recording some more shit in a few weeks. But the 22 minutes I have already, I've listened to so much, I almost want to just press delete. It's just like, this isn't great. It's so tough.
It's very tough. It's probably the hardest thing to do creatively. But you know what I've realized? With a lot of things in my life, you're just fucking letting go and just fucking moving on.
Yeah.
I honestly approach a lot of things like that.
You're so zen.
No, seriously, I gotta move the fuck up because I'm creating that noise in my head.
Yeah.
When I'm okay, I remember competing in boxing, and I remember the scenarios I created in my head, being humiliated in front of my family, being knocked out, not being able to punch, just all these different things. And those are possibilities, but they weren't a reality because that was the future. They weren't there. And I needed to reach a place where I could control my emotions, my feelings leading up to that. And also just letting go, just letting go a little bit.
You can't control the shit.
I was holding on to negative thoughts for specific things. And when I let go, it was positive thoughts, but it was kind of a back and forth thing. It is the process of it. But when I'm saying it needs to be controlled to a point where it's like I have to just let go at a certain given point. If I have anything going on that feels a little uncomfortable, I tell myself, this is all natural.
Yeah.
And just let it go.
Did you find this during the pandemic? This is something I'm trying to remind myself to keep going now that things are opening up and clubs are opening up and I'm working kind of close to what I used to. I was doing these shows outdoors in Pennsylvania, and I had to remind myself, everyone else, it's their life, and they're like, this, are you pumped? And I'm like, no, I'm just going to do the thing. Things didn't matter as much because, people were dying, things were shut down, people were losing their business, and I kept reminding myself, none of this is really real or matters. So I'm doing something I love that I didn't think I was going to be able to do in May of last year. I thought it was like, God knows if I'm ever going to be able to work again. And so it's just like, I'm just going to enjoy whatever it is. If the crowd sucks tonight, they probably won't tomorrow. If I'm a little off, it doesn't matter. I'll be sharper tomorrow. And I'm just, it's like you're saying, letting shit go and realize it's not a big deal. And you just be happy that you're doing this.
Wow. And that is the fucking diamond with, produced by the pressure we all felt. We were all in this fucking thing with not knowing. And there's a lot of good things that come out of it, right? It's like there's a lot of good things. You start to become a little more grateful. You have less distractions, and you're just more like in tune to what the fuck really matters. A lot of the trivial bullshit that we worry about that zaps our valuable energy is shit that we make up in our head. Granted, there are real obstacles and whatever, but we're doing a lot of the right things that prepare us to handle that shit, and it's manageable.
Yeah.
But leading up to it, sometimes we create the scenarios, and I don't just mean with the specific case of the boxing match. I mean sometimes going to work with training people. I'm creating in my head just things that don't exist. It could be I'm gonna be late. I mean, no, or I is it gonna feel mundane? No, it's not. I'm creating this noise. You might as well fill it in with preparation, because that's almost like the idle time. Or
it's great.
Just pulling the plug and learning how to meditate. But meditating, I can't fucking do. That's the one thing I just can't do.
The way you said it is the most convincing. Like, yo, I'm not making this up. I can't do it.
I feel like it's the missing link. I feel like if I had meditation, I'd be a superior human being.
Buddy, that's probably the world doesn't want you to have it. I was meditating for a minute. It's tough. I had like an app. Ugh, what a fucking modern.
It's kind of weird,
meditate?
right?
I have this app called Relax Now. Oh, that's so not.
Having a Zen app or a meditation app is pretty dirtbag.
It's dirtbag as shit. I started playing music again. I keep staring at the wall because there's a guitar. If I play a few minutes of bass, particularly, I'm a guitarist still too. I realize I shut off everything else in my brain, and I'm just being, which I think is kind of what like meditation's supposed to be, and that keeps me loose and in a good space creatively and as a human. I know it sounds insane, but it happens. But that's part of letting go. Like what you're saying. You were saying all these great things. Like we can't be scared of failure. I want to bring this up to you. So when you boxed, right? You got knocked down, right? You've lost fights.
I've never lost, but listen, because I didn't compete a lot, but I had bad days in the gym where I got my ass kicked. So absolutely, in those regards.
That's why I try to convince myself.
It's like training.
I got beat up. I mean, I've been in a million fights. No one knows that about me. I've lost so many times. I've drawn. It's just whatever.
Now you grew up in Vegas, which is an odd place.
It's hillbilly and hood at the same time, and suburban. It's weird.
And this is what's so wild about our relationship.
Yeah.
Because when we first met, I always looked at you as this high energy, great at crowd work comic who knew everybody.
Yeah.
I felt like we were always cordial to each other, but then years later, we kind of befriended each other. And then I got this other side of you that was very, it was, I felt like you were very insightful. I felt like you just a person who had seen some shit that you weren't letting on. Like it was like two different people. I saw the guy on stage that was high energy. It was like ba ba ba. It was kind of like a wood chipper. Ba 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 ba. Just more into the audience, ripping.
That should be my next nickname.
Yeah,
James the wood chipper Mattern.
It's actually a funny
it's hilarious
thing to compare yourself to, because when's the last time I seen a wood chipper?
I don't think that's a bad analogy at all. I think you really have watched my act and have figured it out.
No, but it's funny that I would use wood chipper. I could say
I've never seen one in real life, but I know they exist. And it sounds like
New York.
And when you just went to that is kind of my act at times.
Right. But so when I met you, then there was a much more, like when I really started speaking to you, there was a very serious side, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool to uncover that. Like, that was the James. I seen Mad Dog, but then I saw James, and as time went on, I learned so much more about you. I mean, and it was it was interesting. First of all, growing up in Vegas, I found that shit to be hilarious. Like in a weird way, because everyone goes to Vegas to like do dirtbag shit.
Dirtbag.
So you were in the outskirts. Because everyone thinks of Vegas like the lights and shit.
There's one street. They think like you're born in Caesar's Palace. Like your mom split up aces on a blackjack table and ended up with a baby. Like that's like what happens. Everyone just so did you gamble and did you do? I mean, people think you're gambling in 5th grade. I kind of was, but it's crazy. Everyone just thinks there's only hookers and gambling and dude. When I used to wait tables on the Strip, people would honestly ask me, hey, do you live here? Like I was flying in from Phoenix or LA to work at the Rainforest Cafe. Are you fucking nuts? Like, yeah, we have houses. Did you not notice that when the plane came in? That there's just this one street and there's other shit around it? It wasn't just tumbleweeds and iguanas.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy. People don't think it exists. But it really shouldn't. It is weird, man. I always tell people, growing up where there's no last call is a weird place to live. Like you don't know about it till you're like 21 or you have your fake ID, but there is such a legitimacy to having to leave and go home. to having to end a night is so important. It's like you did it today. Now you got to leave. You can come back tomorrow. Vegas, you didn't have to.
There's no shut off.
There was no shut off. I sometimes wouldn't leave the house to go out till like 12:30. I would work a shift at a restaurant, come home, shower, play 2 games of Mattern, and then go to the bar.
Yeah.
And not think I missed anything. Yo, is there any girls there yet? No, all right. Well, I got the Raiders. I think our quarterback's good. I can win a couple games. I'll see you there when I'm done with this shit. Click, and then an hour and 10 minutes later, I'm there. It's like, oh, you didn't miss something. These girls just got here.
When you say girls, what girls was
I mean, I'm making it sound like the place I hung out had so many. 3 times a year, there'd be like single girls that you didn't bring that you had a chance of hooking up with.
Right.
You don't want to miss that opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I made it sound like it's more than 8 Mile. It really was like 8 Mile. Hey, this is your one shot. You better get here. You better end that third quarter quick, man, and get your ass here.
That is wild. Who'd you grow up with?
Like in my house?
Yeah.
My grandparents raised me. And at a young age, they had some, I had aunts. I lived with like
Your grandparents on your mother or father's side?
my mother's side. Yeah, I don't know my real dad, biological father.
Yeah.
Ooh, whatever.
I barely do too, but I knew him.
You knew him a little.
Yeah, I knew him. I knew who he was.
Like you know his name.
Yeah, and I visit him like a handful of times. But those are the memories that I hold close to me. And when I ask questions,
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same thing. But I didn't know him, I did, But it was a handful of times I met him.
And you haven't seen him in ever?
Well, he passed away
did
when I was
pass.
10. Yeah,
Oh, he passed away at 10. Okay.
But I knew him. But it was, I didn't know him.
Does that torture you?
No.
No.
You know what? It kind of goes back to what we were talking about before. It's like letting go. For years I was mad. I was very angry.
Yeah.
I created the scenarios in my head why he behaved the way he did, why he wasn't around, and then I had to just accept that's what it was, and a lot of it was based on being an addict, on being a Vietnam vet, whatever. It was situations I can't control, but I came to grips with it, and I felt so much lighter.
Sure.
Yeah, because once again in my head I created, like noise and scenarios, which it could do with you. It may not have nothing to do with you, but you got to just let go and move the fuck on.
With forgiveness, so I'm pretty sure.
Did you feel that way? How'd you feel?
Well, yeah, I don't know who this son of a bitch is. I mean, I might have met him 200 times. Fucker might own a comedy club and might have paid me a few times. I don't even know. I don't know the dude. In general, though, like you've seen, like you ever see the Dr. Dre, Jimmy Iovine documentary, the Defiant ones? It's amazing. With D. Barnes, that scene impacted me so hard. Where D. Barnes talks about, she was like choked by Dre when Dre was young and all fucked up, and they asked her about forgiveness, and she goes, "You don't forgive for them. You forgive for you. Why do you need to carry that shit with you forever?" Hit me, Sergio, like a pound of bricks. I watched it before I went to Montreal for the JFL festival, and I made sure there's people I hated and had grudges with that I was cool to that week. I was like, nope. And then one of those persons was shitty to me again, back on the fucking list. So fuck you, D. Barnes. But for a minute, it really worked out. That's a true story. Made peace, had great, and then someone blamed me for their set, their taping, and I go, nope. All right, I got to pick and choose which ones I can put on this, take off the list and can't.
That's hilarious.
Is that wild or what?
That is hilarious.
I had this Zen moment, and I'm feeling at peace. It's just like, yeah, she's right. You forgive for you, and this is great. And then it's like, no, not forgiven's for them. So I'm not forgiving you, bitch.
That's wild. Yeah, there's gonna be situations where it feels unrepairable, and it feels like, oh shit, this person is just a real asshole. Because there's people who move like that. They're just assholes.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm cool with this person now. I mean, this was years
But,
ago.
yeah,
but in that moment, it was like a weird thing. It's like you come to this clarity, and then you're like, shit, man. Was clarity wrong? Was letting go wrong?
There's also an exchange of energy between different personalities.
Yeah.
And some people get off on talking to certain people a certain way. Like their way of an exchange, they need to do it in a certain way. That's kind of what I've been realizing, and they could be condescending, or they put it off. And when it's that, I feel like people just need to be held accountable. Like, you need to address it. Like, I haven't always addressed it, but you know who fucking suffers? Me. Because once again, it's gnawing at me. And that shit may be uncomfortable. Telling someone, listen, for example, let's say I'm at a show and someone, well, I'll go as closely to what you just shared right now. If someone's blaming me for them, if they had a shitty set, they're blaming me, and it's not my fault, I'm gonna address that. I'm like, this is what happened. That's your bad. Like, you got to make that peace with yourself, because at least even if I don't move on from that, I'm like, oh, at least I did my part.
You did your part, dude.
Yeah, and but that's not always easy. That shit is hard. Confrontation is hard. But there's not one fucking time that I didn't confront somebody. And there's not one time that I've confronted somebody and regretted it. It feels uncomfortable, but every time I've done it, I feel like that was the right thing to do.
You're saying there was one time where you regretted it?
No,
Never.
I can't recall one time where I confronted someone and I regretted it.
I told you this story. I mean, I won't go fully in it, but during the summer, this dude told me a story of how he confronted someone. And then he kept acting shitty to me as the night went on. And I said, I would be remiss after you shared that story of not standing up for myself right now. It felt good, buddy.
Feels good.
And the kids started shaking. You could see that I tweaked them a bit. And I'm like, if you want to fight me, just so you know, there's a great chance you'll win, but I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I could care less. I've lost plenty of fights. What's one more, baby? I'm 10, 10, and 10, Sergio. I did the math. I've been in 30 fights.
You got the fighting record of that looks like a combination password.
Yes, that's basically what it is.
You got a chop Corley.
I have the record of Spider Rico at the beginning of Rocky. That's what I am. And so
who's Spider Rico?
It's the first guy Rocky fights in the beginning of Rocky, and they do a great job in that, where the people are at the fight and are mad at themselves for being in the fight. People are like visibly turning to each other in the opening scenes of this award-winning film going, this stinks, these guys are tomato. They're booing both fighters. Rocky wins, but the next day people are giving him shit. You fought a tomato can. You fought a piece of garbage. Years later in Rocky Balboa, they have Spider Rico as like a busboy. It's like 65 years old at Rocky's restaurant.
I'm impressed by your ability to remember all this. You always use like movie references.
Yeah.
And that's your shit. Movies.
Yeah, you see how great it's done for me. As I have all these old references, and the audiences are younger.
Yeah, I have a hard time sometimes just talking to people in general. Like if I use because most of the people I interact with are younger.
Of course.
And it's like, if I use any reference, before the year of 2001, it's a wrap.
And it used to be where it was okay. Where people like, I'm not one of these back in the day dudes, and my generation's better, but I feel like our generation was a little more of being seekers. And this is before we could just learn anything in our phones and shit. I always wanted to learn. If you did a reference and I didn't get it and I asked what it was, and you're like, oh, it's this cool ass movie. Do you realize when I graduated college, people think this is insane because I'm like this white boy or whatever, and the movie just came out.
You're half white and half Mexican?
I don't know. I think Jewish. I mean, my family's divided on what the fuck I am. I pretty much think I'm Jewish, but whatever. It could go either way. But I love Dolomite as my name. It's inspiring. That movie's great.
Dolomite?
Like, Dolomite. But I watched.
Everyone spoke like this. What's happening,
it's
baby?
It's so crazy. Yeah. I had a copy of that DVD. I went searching every mall in Las Vegas with a gift certificate I got for graduating college for Suncoast Video. Remember that shit?
Yeah.
Suncoast Video. I went and they're like, you're really looking for Dolomite? I'm like, yeah. All right, it might be at the one in Summerlin. For fucking Dolomite, because enough people I thought were cool told me that Dolomite was the shit and that the Beastie Boys made reference to Dolomite, and I trusted everything they said, so it must be amazing. I don't think people do that anymore. If you make an old reference, there's people, I'm only like 7 years older than it, and I'll make a reference like, oh, you're old, man. That's dated. So what? You just listen and watch everything that comes out this week and nothing else? You don't want anything good? You don't want to read Shakespeare, the Beatles?
That's what worries me about
Marvin Gaye?
Yeah, that's what worries me about present day. I feel like a lot of things are super disposable, and people don't want to go, they're not interested in history or doing the research.
Yeah, everything's just old.
Well,
clothes are old. Should we not wear clothes?
I-
People wore clothes back in 1800. Should we not wear it? That's some old shit. Oh, language. Do you realize how old English is? We shouldn't speak it. Should we just be just nodding our heads with emojis and say, like, seriously, just because something's old, everything's old. But good is good. Don't you want good things in your life?
Yeah, and what inspired it? Music is all made up from other types of music. When you think all music,
That's the fun of it, Sergio.
That's the fun of it.
As I get older now, I listen to more jazz, and I listen to old blues, and I even listen to like field recordings that they still have of like it all comes from like.
I would listen to like old Robert Johnson.
I love it. I'm on a kick of Lead Belly. I love Lead Belly. That's why that guitar really makes me want to play some Lead Belly.
When you listen to like old blues, you feel like you're in Mississippi. You feel like you can almost smell it.
And it's primitive, and you couldn't even tell. Like the first time I heard Robert Johnson, my buddy nicknamed Cooter. That's a fun person to grow up with. My first day at college. Was good
that
friends
sounds
with
very. What's that show?
Dukes of Hazzard. He got it from Dukes of Hazzard.
That's yeah.
Is that Insanity or what?
Yeah, it sounds very like Breaking Bad-ish.
Yes.
Like,
well, they're Southern guys who moved to Vegas, and he goes, "Let me give you a real education, boys." And we came to his house, and he just played Robert Johnson, old blues, and he goes, What do you think of this?" I'm like, "This sounds great." They're great. It's one guy playing, and it sounds like 5 different guys are playing. Acoustic guitar, and it sounds electric at times. That's how good he was. But the recording is shit. But
I like
smell
it.
it.
You can smell it, you can feel it,
Yeah.
you can hear the static in the back, almost like the.
Isn't it great? But so
I do like that.
So it's so old. Should we not listen to it? Should we not listen to? I've been listening to all this old comedy again. Should I not listen to Red Fox records?
Yeah,
Should I not?
I definitely have a problem, and I worry about that. I worry about is that where we're headed right now? It seems like everything. I don't worry about it too much because I feel like I honestly don't. That's me being real dramatic on here. I don't worry about it too much. I'm actually very grateful that I'm at an age where I'm at where I can get a little bit of both. Because I'm also not an old geezer where I look at new shit and listen to new shit and completely dismiss it.
That stinks.
That stinks. Yeah.
Stinks.
And I've definitely been guilty of
That's
that.
dumb too.
It's dumb. It's ignorant, right?
So the only good things came out when you were between
Right.
the ages of 12 and 25.
But I do
That's the
feel-
only time there's ever been good stuff.
I do feel like a lot of things everything is just is shorter, smaller, and like there's that instant gratification button that's tied into all forms of entertainment. Nobody really wants to hear the story unravel. They don't want the story. They just want the quick fix. And you'll see that with any forms of entertainment I'm interested in. For example, at least what's considered mainstream or pop. If you look at boxing, what's creating the most noise right now? Present day, it's probably like a Jake Paul, YouTube guy fighting a non-boxer. And because they're caught up in the shenanigans, the shit talk, the drama of it, the two worlds colliding, and there's a place for that, but that's under the umbrella of boxing because it's boxing, right? Rapping is, I love rap. Who was the one a couple of years ago? Tekashi 6ix9ine, where he's a powerful performer, but the noise, the controversy, all that under the umbrella of hip hop, and he's made up of more of that. He's actually rock. He's rap, but it's gang related, So he tied into all these different words, but it's super dangerous and it's a very cheap side to it. It's very shoved down your throat kind of thing. And they didn't allow, they allowed for more of the noise to propel forward rather than the talent,
And there's always been elements of that.
Yeah.
Like, you're a boxing guy, Muhammad Ali. Part of what made him great is he told everyone he was great. And a lot of the shenanigans that he took from wrestling that he loved.
Right.
He loved Gorgeous George. He took a lot from Gorgeous George.
The thing is about Muhammad Ali is that he stood up for the rights of his people. He did some very bold things.
And that's what took him over the top with that, yes.
But even with stand-up, stand-up is changing. I mean, we talk about, it's a lot of it, and I'm not saying all of it, because I'm being very, I want to be careful. But some of the stand-up specials I see, I feel like, oh, this sounds more like, it seems like more like a spoken word. It seems like it's kind of pulled something that maybe someone was politically awakened.
Yeah.
And they're like, this is the area or the demographic I want to, and that's what's being promoted. And that is a slice of history and society that has a voice, but it's not funny. Like, it's, it has to be funny.
You know what my main things are. So, it gets me fired up.
But it's subjective, right? I shouldn't say it's not funny, but I'm just like, where's the funny? And I think people who like that shit don't even find it funny. It could be thought-provoking, but it's that stand-up.
Buddy, it's not. Dude, let's be honest. There's two. This is the big problem now. My dear friend Nathan McIntosh and I have like a State of the Union every week about this because he's like, what do we do? Comedy now, you have to just be on one side or the other. It is the biggest this is the thing I hate the most about comedy now. Can I be blunt? I'm going to fucking let it out. I'm looking at the camera. I'm either right wing and we're not allowed to say anything and I just want to say colored and call people homos out loud and we used to be able to do this and you're canceling me, or it's I'm far left and I just come on stage and I go, everyone should be equal. Gay is beautiful. Diversity is beautiful. And everyone just gets claps. There's no joke. There's no skill. It doesn't matter where you stand on each side. Like me, be funny. There's people who politically I don't agree with at all, but they're fucking funny. I'll say Nick DiPaolo, I don't agree with probably 90% of the things he says, but he's a good comedian.
I absolutely agree.
A goddamn comedian. Be a comedian. Now, if you're a legend like Chappelle has earned the right to go on and do these 20-minute things, 10-minute videos where he just does his thing. And that's his flex too, because at any second he can turn. And he always does like one or two of them in the middle. He's earned that. As far as I'm concerned, you're on Mount Rushmore. He's given us hours of laughter if he wants to, whatever. But this laziness of just going into Williamsburg and going, man, Trump sucks. And I'm not a Trump guy, but like that shouldn't be your joke and get a clap. I've seen people bragging about like, I killed my audition at the Strip and I didn't get passed. I got an applause break. And I remember it's like, no, your applause break was there was 8 people left in the Upper East Side at 10:30 at night and who had been drinking all night. And you're like, Trump sucks. And they just happened to be in the Upper East Side Trump haters. And you got to clap. You didn't earn nothing. You're just telling an audience that already agrees with you something they agree with.
Yeah.
Liberals are taking it too far where they're canceling. Yeah, fuck that. There's no joke there. Be funny. I love Bill Hicks. I didn't agree with everything. He's even, I'm a moderate liberal, I guess. There's things he says like so far left. I'm like, oh, whatever. But he was a great comedian.
Yeah.
At least he was trying to end it with punchlines and that. Like be a comedian first. That's more important. But that's what people are now. Well, you're saying the spoken word, yeah, because you don't have to be funny. You can just spout that the side you hate or you're afraid of that isn't you, they're bullshit, and people just eat it up. Hey, those things that you believe in, I believe in them too. Yay! Well, let's just do a rally. Why don't you run for office if that's what you care about? Stop taking a spot from people who are writing jokes and doing really intricate act outs and bleeding on stage and trying to win over people who don't think like them to like them.
Yeah, you think that changes? I like very personal comedy.
I love it.
Yeah, that's what I lean towards, and I always want to be open to, but I just, if you think of what comedy is, it's supposed to be funny. I think the people who enjoy, what we're talking about, what we're labeling as like that spoken word.
Clapter.
Yeah, I don't think they find it funny. They find it interesting, and there is some points that are valid points. But I think there's another place for that, and it shouldn't be on stage. I shouldn't have to. Well, I don't have to, and that's the nice thing about it. I can talk about it on here, but I won't ever go on, put a thumbs down on it or whatever. But it's just interesting how it does take it is taking up a lot of airtime.
Dude, it's crazy.
And it is wild because there is a demographic that's probably listening to it, but
people are making money off this.
There's making money off it.
People were almost out of the business years ago. We're making money now.
Do we lose our sense of humor? Does that happen? Does that take over? And then, because some of it is, I'm telling you, the people who are tuning into that, they're not laughing. There's something different that they're getting out of it. And it doesn't mean it's not strong. It doesn't mean it's not important, but it's not funny.
Yeah, buddy. Some of these shows feel like rallies. I have a buddy who's like a Republican, and he had an event where there's a bunch of people who are that one way, and he goes, "Man, it wasn't even comedy. I felt like I was at a rally." He's like, "This isn't." I wanted to go to a comedy show. Like it's just like this has become so, because of social media, it's so easy to get likes like that. But here's the thing: I always joked like this. Oh man, I don't know if we can say.
You can say anything.
No, but I love Andy Hall, and it's like after that HBO thing, it's like I'm not going to watch any Woody Allen anymore, and that's my choice. You don't have to. No one has to. I loved him. I loved his movies, but there's a line I'll keep. They always said that the old saying is those who can't teach, or those who can't do teach, and then those who can't teach gym. It's a funny fucking line. I've always loved it. I always felt like the gym teachers in show business were the people, like your last bastion, if you really think of it, people who end up doing like political radio. It's like they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to talk about these topics every day. They just ended up doing it, and it became easier to do. And that's where people are going. It's where you go when there's no other gig, and it's just easy. You're just telling people this. It's because people get so fired up with social media. It's such a market now, more than it ever has been. And you could just get both. You could do a Patreon where people just pay and you just say, that side's stupid, blah, blah, blah. And it's just easy. People had a sense of humor, but people don't want that. People want blood, and they just want to know that their anger towards someone who's different. It's always going to come down, Sergio, this society to life, is that I don't like you because you're not me. It's so weird that we don't trust and we're scared of what doesn't look like us.
Yeah, that's why I can't give. I mean, I've given energy to it, but I don't. My everyday energy, it's like it's very valuable to me, and I can't. I gotta limit my comment intake on videos. I'm not on Twitter. I Instagram. I'm very limited to what I allow in there because there's a lot of dope ass shit during the day. Like colors are brighter when I'm not fucking utilizing my idle time on my phone. You walk down the street, there's some dope shit, and a lot of the people I interact with daily are pretty fucking interesting, dope people.
Yeah.
And the ones that I'm not, I make fun of them and we have fun. Like that shit was whack. Like whatever. But it's like. You can get caught up, man.
It's crazy.
And it could really start to define how you start to move and how you start to think. But I think it's repairable. Like, you can flip it, but you can also succumb to it, right? We could succumb to it.
And people are. And it's like, it's not real. You got to realize this.
It's not real.
And we're allowed to disagree. When I go to PA, I stay with people who didn't vote like I did in this last election and don't feel the same way about vaccines that I do and all this shit. And I have to deal with it. We're allowed to disagree, but not with this social shit. It's make your decision. And I've listened to so-and-so, and he told me that people who think vaccines are good are going to kill our... Oh, shut the fuck up. That person is just trying to keep getting paid. That person couldn't get into movies, couldn't do that. So for 4 hours a day has to say shit like this to get you fired up. That's it.
Right.
And it's lazy. It's like bad entertainers are shaping people's thoughts politically. Failed entertainers. It's crazy. This would be like if they did Dolomite now, like if Rudy Ray Moore was coming up now, he wouldn't do party albums where he's doing Signifying Monkey and talking about pussy. He would be like, they're holding us back with this. And the government wants to put fucking frog DNA in your water. Like he'd be Alex Jones. He wouldn't be Dolomite. Think about that shit. Mm-hmm. How crazy is that? And maybe if Alex Jones was 30 years older, he would have been White Dolomite instead of telling you that shit is.
I can't listen too much Alex Jones.
Too much. I mean, yeah, but by too much, do you mean 2 sentences? Two sentences, I'm out.
I'm done.
It's shtick, but he's admitted it in court when he was going to lose his children. And then people see that and still don't believe it. And then he comes on and talks about like gay frog water and that shootings were staged.
So what happens? What's happening in society right now? I think people are so desperate. They don't want to. People don't want reality, and the reality is sometimes. We look at our past, where we come from. It's ugly. Sometimes it's ugly. I mean, I look at my father was a criminal. You know, he was on drugs. And he was absent. Well, as a young kid, I was exposed to a lot of drugs, and that's my reality. That's where I come from. And in contrast to what's now, I feel like, oh shit, it's kind of dope.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like dope to look back at that, feel where I'm at right now. You know, do people now want to face the reality of society?
No.
Right. So it's like a guy like Alex Jones is telling you, you know, it gives a lane to conspiracy theories where it's like, oh yeah, rather than believing, you know, what science is telling you, I'm gonna believe this
Absolutely.
thing because there's a community behind it, and you know, the reality. I don't want to. I'm just gonna put a black wall to what the reality is. Like they literally will turn their head to the facts,
buddy. This is the absolute truth.
There's a good portion of people.
So people who deny COVID and all this shit, they tend to think that like people wearing masks and getting the vaccine and weren't going out of their house are scared. They're like, you're scared. I'm not scared. And I'm now flipping it. If they're going to be shitty like that, man, I didn't realize that you were petrified of needles or wearing a mask. I didn't realize that you were like, they're the ones who are scared, Sergio. Like people who are creating it because we're actually facing it. I have a mask that I have to put on. I'm vaxxed now. I had to go get vaccinated. I had to avoid seeing people I love because there was an actual thing going on. It's easier to go, nope, that's liberal media. That's horse shit. I'm just going to live my life. That's easier than actually facing that people are in the ground. I'll admit it. I banged the broad a few months ago, had breakfast with her, and she's like, is it true that in New York, all those people died? Is that really true? I'm like, what the? Yes, it fucking is. But not for you, because it's easier for you to eat your ham and fucking eggs, not knowing that there was ice cream trucks in front of hospitals full of fucking corpses. It's a lot easier to live like that than to actually
It's pretty
deal
wild
with it.
that last year around this time, it was totally different. I remember the streets were quiet and all you heard was ambulance trucks. You know, Sirens.
Sorry, as you were saying, all you heard was sirens.
You know, it's fine. It's good.
It's like, no, you didn't hear that shit.
I remember, you know, that shit was intense, man. Everything was closed off, you know, and we're starting to get a glimpse of a little bit of a little bit of things are starting to lift up a little bit.
Isn't that nice?
It is.
But
as I wide-eyed I gave him the wide eyes.
Baby, sometimes you got to give the wide eye.
Wide eye. Yeah, it is. It is. I you know, it's. But it all needs to happen. It all needed to happen.
This is dude. So I got this tattoo, man. Amor fati, the love of fate. The love of fate. We have free will. You make a decision, but that decision was going to. But what happens after you make the decision was going to happen, and that leads to your next decisions. It's all that. It's just, and you just deal with it. It's a way of letting go. Dude, nothing's more annoying than the people who dwell on bad decisions. You should learn from them. If you want to regret a little, but you made it. Go on. You know, when people like hold your nose and shit. Remember when you did this to me, you asshole? All right, that was like 18 years ago. What are we going to do? This happened. What's next? So this was fate. This, unfortunately, we could get angry and be like, try and find blame. That's another thing people are doing. It's the Chinese fault. It's a Chinese flu. Cool. Okay. They created it. Cool. Let's just say they did. What's next? Does that take away the deaths? Does that take away the fact that we're slowly reopening? We had to deal. It happened. We deal with it. This was destiny. We were going to have COVID. We can't be mad that it happened. You can be upset, but it happened, and it happened for a reason to lead us to whatever's next. And that's what we're doing. We should be excited. I mean, it stinks. It's obviously horrible that we lost people and that people lost businesses and all this shit, and people have been losing their minds in their houses. But we should now look at whatever's next as exciting.
Yeah,
what is next? Where are we going to evolve, bro?
This is going to give birth to some beautiful things if it hasn't done so already.
There's good art that's coming out. There's good.
Absolutely.
We should be inspired, man. There's people who are doing shit. I would have kept postponing the podcast. I would have postponed this record I'm working on and this other project that I got if I didn't have this podcast, or if the pandemic didn't force me in the house for months. Like, we should look at this and take lessons of this and keep building, baby. Boy,
Absolutely.
The coffee's kicking the fuck in right now.
No, you're absolutely right. And that way of thinking should be applied in everything in life.
Yes.
It's just not, and I feel like people who already like planted those seeds of thinking, of living their life, probably didn't have the hardest time during, the pandemic and the shit of it. Because you know how to, make it work. You know how you figure it out. You know how to make the best out of a shitty situation.
Oh, yeah.
You see the openings. There's openings.
Dude. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. I tried to humble myself when this shit was happening because I went back to Vegas. I stayed with my buddy and his fiance in a house. There was sunshine more days than not. I'm walking in a beautiful park, all this cool shit. There was food. All right. And I was thinking about this still kind of stinks, but look at these things going on. And I reminded myself that my grandparents went through, my grandpa grew up, basically was born into the Depression, had a war. The war goes through. He has to go fight in Korea. My grandma, Germany was poor. Nazis take over. Her family dies fighting for that motherfucker. Poor again, another depression there. Comes to America, broke as shit. That's some hard living. I can't stay inside for 5 months, 6 months, and shit. Like
all that
this
shit,
is insane. They dealt with it and barely bitched about it.
Right. And the thing is, I'm not saying anything radically new, but we need to be reminded that all this shit shapes us. It's like, it's the training camp for fucking life. You know what I'm saying? Like, it all shapes you. And if you look at it with that, that sort of like, with that kind of battle, that warrior spirit,
yes.
you're going to see good things come out of it. Like, you got to put yourself in the shit and embrace it a little bit, but it doesn't stay like that. It always gets better.
I mean,
it
think
leads
about
you
it.
somewhere.
Can you imagine? Man, this sucked. This is so horrible. I ate 5 bags of fucking microwave popcorn a day in Las Vegas. Do you realize, like, my grandma, if she had 2 kernels that weren't even popped, that would have been like a big meal for her once? And I'm like, this stinks. What are we going to open up? This is bullshit. I'm shoving buttery ass Orville Redenbacher in my goddamn gut. Like 5 raw cashews. I had Amazon. I binge watched The Sopranos, and I'm like, this is the worst thing to happen to my life. I rewatched The Sopranos. I finally watched Lost 20 years later, and I'm like, and people have the balls to be like, this is the worst thing ever. It wasn't great, but still, we had it so much better. How many people in the Middle East like wake up and are gonna meet their cousin, and then wait an hour and a half at noon for their cousin, then find out their cousin got blown up because of conflicts going on? Like, shut up, everybody. Who sucks? And it shapes us and learn from this shit. And it defines us later, but to have some appreciation for it.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's been my attitude throughout. And not to minimize, I know people who fucking passed away from
horrible.
That. Yeah, but at the same time, there's also due process for like mourning and dealing with it, and and their strength and vulnerability. Like, when I'm sad about someone passing, I let it be known, and I talk to people.
You should,
right? It's just
always
like,
should.
Yeah, because there's a process to it, and that shit hits you in waves. But you gotta address it. You gotta address it. Everything needs to be addressed, but there is a lot of good that comes out of this.
It has to be, because what's the other option? Just be in misery over it, over those months that we were stuck eating popcorn and watching The Sopranos and just going, that sucked. It sucked, but what's next? Like, you get dealt bad cards. Let's go back to poker. So if you're stuck in the hand and you didn't catch your 3rd ace, you either fold or you keep playing. And then if you fold, you got to find a way to win the next one. I've won hands with bad cards, and I've lost hands with good cards. It's just how it goes. That's life. You figure out what you're dealt. You're dealt shit, and then you go with it. If this studio closes down tomorrow, are you going to stop doing the podcast, or are you going to figure out another way to do your podcast?
You figure it out. You keep on pushing.
Baby.
Yeah, I'm fucking inspired, man. Let's go running, man.
I'll go. Yeah, let's cut my foot off. Do it.
We're gonna close this out soon. There were things
appreciate that too, because I love you to death. My bladder's screaming at me in fucking languages I don't even understand.
So, we're going to close this out in a minute. And I appreciate you, man. You're one of my favorites,
boy.
brother.
I love you to death. This is great.
So, it's the Commissioner of Comedy. Check it out. It's a dope podcast. And me and James, we run the city together. Actually, you do a lot more city stuff. I find when we hit each other, we kind of come across paths more on the road and stuff when we're working with Giannis or Chris and stuff like that. So, plug it in.
Commissioner Comedy Podcast. Episodes drop Monday night. Check that shit out. Can I just... So,
Please.
The James Mattern on Instagram, The James Mattern TikTok. I'm starting to do that shit now. Also, man, do this solid. Check out on Spotify or Apple Music, or if you want to buy it. I did something with New York Comedy Club. They worked with a couple of great artists, Matt Richards, Christina Hodgson. They had us perform with a band. I have a bit, my peanut allergy bit. I have with a band. It is fucking cool. It's almost spoken wordish, but it's jokes. And with a band.
I like that. Some very creative, twisty, kind of play with the music and stand up.
It's fun. Check it out.
Because every comic wants to be a rock star, and every rock star wants to be a comic.
Always. Peanut
so joining
allergy.
those two worlds was pretty dope.
Check it out, Sessions, and I'm gonna do like an album of that coming out soon. But I have another album. Look for this on my social media. We're gonna finish the recording in May. I'm doing a whole album of question and answers with the audience during the check spot.
And that's definitely one of your strong
suits. That's what I do.
Yeah.
But the check spot, if you don't know, is the worst part of the comedy show where everyone pays their bills at once. And I, before the pandemic, started recording check spots of me dealing with that. And I had about 22 minutes. My record label was cool, but they were a little nervous. So they're allowing me to put it out somewhere else. And that place is letting me record more. Memorial Day weekend in New York Comedy Club. Come check it out. I'll be doing it. Come with questions. And I'm going to do a special of it, too. I'm doing a whole special and album.
That's some ballsy shit. That's not easy, man. But if anyone can pull it off, it's your ass.
Thank you.
That's not easy to do.
I've got some fun shit coming out, so come with this shit. I know I'm very serious when I do podcasts, but what the fuck else, man? I'm passionate. All the funny shit, go check it out. We're going to do some cool shit, man.
What date did you have for the Q&A thing?
So it's going to be Memorial Day weekend. I will be hosting shows at New York Comedy Club. It'll be a regular show.
Oh, dope. Okay.
It'll be a regular show. I'll be hosting
the checks.
And then at the end, when the bills come out, I'm going to do the checks, and we're going to roll tape, and I'm going to only do questions if people come. So don't come there and just don't bring a question.
Yeah.
Come there, and we're going to deal with it.
People love to hear themselves speak. They're gonna be coming with questions.
So we're just going to do that. We're filming it, and it's going to be fun.
Dope, man. All right, my man James Mattern.
Thank you,
That's
brother.
the DBS podcast. Like, subscribe, all that generic shit that I ask of you week after week. Please do. All right? We out of here. We out. Peace.
It's great, Bubba's.